My name is Mark. I'm 35 years old, and I'm a software engineer. In February 2023, I decided to take a winter trip with some friends to relax and disconnect from the hectic routine that dominated our lives. We chose an isolated cabin deep in Hell's Canyon, surrounded by icy mountains and a thick layer of snow. The scenery was breathtaking, but as night settled in, the solitude of the cabin began to weigh on my mind, as if the walls were about to close in around us. On the first night, while we warmed ourselves by the fireplace, telling stories and laughing carefreely, a peculiar noise echoed through the forest. It was a subtle but disturbing sound, as if someone was moving among the trees, carefully stepping on the snow. Our laughter gradually faded, and a palpable tension began to grow among us. The silence of the night was already heavy, but the sense that something was about to happen became almost unbearable. We decided to investigate, armed with lanterns that illuminated the path ahead. As we moved away from the cabin, the noise seemed to intensify in response to our curiosity, creating an exhilarating yet terrifying sensation at the same time. But what truly frightened us was realizing that the sound did not seem to come from a single source. It was as if something was surrounding us, whispering in a language we couldn't understand. The air was cold, and the shadows danced around us, making the situation even more surreal. After a few minutes, we decided it was time to return. With our hearts racing, we made our way back, but upon arriving, we noticed that the cabin door was ajar. A wave of panic washed over us. No one had left, and the biting cold air sent a shiver up our spines as we entered again. Our coats and backpacks were rearranged, as if someone had tampered with our belongings during our absence. A deep sense of dread settled among us, and the night became a cauldron of unease. Each sound became amplified, and we could no longer distinguish what was the wind and what was the echo of footsteps in the trees. My friends and I could no longer concentrate on the stories that once entertained us. Horrified, we realized that the feeling of being watched was intensifying. It felt like invisible eyes were following us, waiting for the right moment to intervene, making us feel vulnerable in our own refuge. In the stillness of the night, we all tried to sleep, but the mental and emotional strain from the situation made it impossible to relax. With every creak of wood and every cutting breeze, we jumped in fright. The sounds increased, coming from all sides, as if something were trying to get in. The pressure of panic united us, prompting us to operate as a group defending against an invisible threat. When a morning sun finally began to rise on the horizon, we decided it would be best to leave the cabin and return to civilization. We stepped out cautiously, and the panic that had taken over us was replaced by a longing for safety. But as we stepped onto the snow in front of the cabin, something paralyzed us. We saw footprints in the snow, leading away from the cabin. They were large and strange, with shapes that didn't belong to any of us. Doubt settled in instantly. Who or what had left those marks? What had we not seen in the darkness the night before? Following the footprints with our eyes, we felt utterly exposed. Since that day, whenever I look at those mountains, I feel a chill run down my spine. That experience, which was supposed to be a relaxing escape, had turned into a nightmare that left us both intrigued and afraid. The mystery followed us, and the echoes of the sounds from that night returned to my dreams, whispering secrets that were not meant to be heard. The mountains of Hell's Canyon now symbolized something beyond natural beauty. They represented the unknown, and a lesson that some experiences should not be sought. Where we had gone in search of fun, we found a shadow that taught us to respect the boundaries of the known and the unknown. Nature can be welcoming and inviting, but it can also secretly be an unforgiving place, filled with secrets and stories we prefer to ignore. With each new winter, the memory of that getaway in Hell's Canyon became more vivid, a haunting echo reminding me of the fragility of life and the necessity of respecting the mysteries that surround us. We returned home, but the experience left a mark. My conversations with friends often shifted to more lighthearted topics when the subject arose. The connection we formed during that tense moment was undeniable. What was supposed to be a fun trip transformed into a deep reflection on friendship, fear, and what it truly means to be present. As our lives continued, every winter, the visions of the ajar cabin door and the strange footprints in the snow danced in our memories. Months later, I received a group message inviting everyone to a reunion, with the idea of gathering entirely outside Hell's Canyon, where we could relive some adventures. I hesitated at first. The memory of fear momentarily overwhelmed me, but my curiosity for the experience and camaraderie quickly overcame my apprehension. I decided to go, determined not to let the memory of a haunting experience dictate my life. At the reunion, many of us laughed at our audacity and discussed the ironies of that trip. Among the stories, I realized that each of us had been affected in different ways. We knew that travel experiences form a unique kind of bond. What was a terrifying memory could transform into a source of strength, and together we began to plan new adventures, refusing to let fear paralyze us. However, as time passed and winter approached again, the memories of Hell's Canyon were rekindled. The howling wind in my town morphed into echoes of those freezing nights, and as I walked through the streets, I couldn't help but think about the secrets hidden beneath the snow. Nature, with its beauty, also held truths that we couldn't see at first glance, and this stirred within me a mixture of anxiety and admiration. The night following the competitive final ski trip, I invited some friends over for fondue at my place. Conversation flowed, and laughter filled the air again, but something shifted in my heart. I spoke about the trust we cultivated while being together in those distant mountains. And in a moment of vulnerability, I decided to share the story of the footprints and how our experience by the fireplace that cold day brought us even closer. As I recounted the tale, I watched as my friends leaned in, their expressions shifting from amusement to intrigue. The atmosphere in the room changed. We were no longer just reminiscing about a spook-filled adventure, but diving deeper into the essence of what we had faced together. I could feel the solidarity grow stronger as we acknowledged the fear, yet also the courage that it forged within us. The conversation blossomed into reflections about our connection to nature and the lessons learned from our encounters with the unknown. We discussed how facing our fears together not only strengthened our friendship, but also taught us valuable insights about resilience, empathy, and the power of community. By the end of the night, as we shared stories and laughter over our fondue, we promised one another to continue exploring, to seek out new adventures that would challenge us, but also unite us as friends. Each journey we take would be a chance to honor the past while embracing whatever mysteries lay ahead. And as I looked around at the faces of those I cared about, I felt a warmth within me, an assurance that together we could face any shadow, turning fear into a catalyst for connection and understanding. Unknown to me, one of my friends listening held a similar experience related to Hell's Canyon. He recalled a time he had been there summer before our visit and felt a presence in a remote part of the forest where the sun barely penetrated. The connection through the voices we began to share brought forth a sense of unity, as if we were now the guardians of intertwined stories. Each of us, even in the depths of fear, had found strength in our bond of friendship. That night, we made a promise. Regardless of where our journeys might take us, we would support one another. And even when nature tested us, we must not lose hope. The stories of Hell's Canyon became a symbol of resilience and a reminder that while the unknown can be terrifying, it can also transform into a source of strength. Years passed, and Hell's Canyon continues to both enchant and terrify me at the same time. The fear that once consumed me has turned into respect for the beauty and mystery of nature. And whenever I look at those mountains, I am reminded that behind every shadow, there is a story, a new adventure waiting to be discovered, with all the secrets and hauntings it may bring. The echo of that trip becomes a constant part of me, reminding me that life is made up of moments, and that courage can thrive even in the darkest of nights. Thus, I face the future with a new perspective and the understanding that some experiences, no matter how terrifying they may be, shape our lives, teach us about friendship, and above all, remind us that the unknown should not be feared, but embraced with an open heart and a curious spirit. My name is Ellen. I'm 28 years old and a photographer. In December 2022, I sought inspiration in the icy forests of Norrland, Sweden, and decided to take a solo trip to an isolated cabin. Upon arriving, the beauty of the scenery captivated me. The snow-covered trees shimmering under the soft light of the winter sun and the tranquility enveloping nature awakened a sense of peace within me. However, the magical calm quickly transformed into a feeling of unease as the days went by. With the growing silence of the forest and the solitude often feeling oppressive, a strange sensation began to settle within me. While spending my days exploring and photographing the landscape, the nights grew increasingly lonely. On the second night, as I examined some photos of the scenes I had captured, an unexpected sound started to interrupt my focus. Soft whispers coming from outside. At first, I thought the wind was playing with the snow, creating mysterious sounds, but soon I realized the voices were closer, as though someone or something was trying to communicate. Rising impulsively, I went to the window to investigate. Outside, a fine mist covered the ground, and shadows seemed to move between the trees, dancing in an almost ethereal manner. Fear gripped me, but curiosity was irresistible. With my camera in hand and my heart racing, I decided to step outside and investigate the source of the whispers that now seemed to be calling me. Each step I took in the accumulated snow echoed with a soft crunch that blended with the murmur of the wind, creating an unsettling soundtrack for my bravery. As I ventured further into the forest, an oppressive sensation grew, as if nature itself were closing in around me. The voices became more intimate, softly pronouncing my name, Ellen, Ellen. As I tried to discern a presence among the trees, I paused and called out, hoping for a response. But the only return I received was the distant echo of my own call. Fear began to overwhelm me, but curiosity still held a tight grip on my impulse. Despite the lurking dread, I took a deep breath and pushed forward, determined to uncover what lay hidden. The shadows moved fluidly around me, each whisper weaving deeper into the fabric of my thoughts. "What do you want?" I called out into the fog, my voice wavering yet resolute. As I stepped into a small clearing, the atmosphere shifted once more. The whispers quieted, and a soft light began to emerge, illuminating the area like a beacon. The air felt charged with energy, as if the woods were alive with anticipation. The sense of being watched morphed into something less hostile, as if the presence ached not for fear, but for connection. "Please, show yourself," I urged, my voice steadying as I embraced the courage that surged within me. In that moment of vulnerability, a figure materialized from the mist, ethereal and delicate. Its form was shrouded in a soft glow, and as it stepped into the light, I could see its face, serene yet filled with an ancient wisdom. "We are here to listen, to understand," it seemed to say without words, a feeling coursing through me that resonated with the essence of the forest. I felt the knots of fear unravel within, replaced by a deep sense of belonging. In that instant, I recognized that the whispers were not warnings, but invitations to delve deeper into what nature could teach us. Standing there, connected to the figure in the forest, I understood that my journey was not just about confronting fear. It was about embracing curiosity and compassion. I knew then that the experience in Norrland would forever be a testament to the power of listening, both to the voices of the forest and to the echoes within ourselves. Continuing to explore, I found a fallen tree, and intrigued, I approached it. Upon seeing a symbol carved into its trunk, a biting chill raced through my body as soon as I touched the wood. It was as if an electric current passed through me, and the whispers grew in intensity, becoming almost deafening. My survival instinct kicked in, and in a reflexive impulse, I ran back to the cabin, locking the doors and windows before curling up under the blankets. The night was endless. With every noise, my anxiety intensified. Each creak of the house seemed to be a whisper, a call from something surrounding me. Sleep was impossible as the voices continued their constant murmur, as if woven into the walls of the cabin and within me. Time passed slowly, and the restlessness only increased as I clutched my camera tightly to my chest, treating it like a shield. When dawn finally broke, sunlight streamed through the windows, but the feeling of fear lingered. I looked around, and everything seemed normal, yet I knew something had changed. The voices, which felt so far away in the light of day, still echoed faintly in my mind, a persistent reminder of those hours of tension. Piecing together images from the previous night, I understood that the experience could not simply be ignored. Upon returning to Copenhagen, everyday life felt unexpectedly ordinary, but there was something in the whispers that accompanied me. It was as if a part of Norland had decided to follow me, a remnant of what I had lived through in those frozen forests. Sometimes, as I listened to the wind while walking the streets, I imagined that the whispers could return, carrying secrets known only to the trees. I found myself reflecting on the nature of those experiences and how they had reshaped my perception. The shadows that had once terrified me were now intertwined with my own story, serving as a reminder of the beauty and complexity in confronting the unknown. With every chill of the wind, I was reminded of the lessons I learned, that nature speaks in whispers and that some mysteries are meant to be respected, not feared. Each encounter with the natural world became a reflection of both my fears and hopes, and I learned to embrace them as part of my growth. The journey to Norland had not ended. It continued to resonate within me, a guiding force leading me toward deeper understanding and connection. And while I knew the whispers of the forest would always linger at the edges of my consciousness, I felt empowered to face whatever came my way, ready to listen to the stories the world had to share. What had initially been a search for inspiration had now turned into a vivid memory. The experience taught me that there are mysteries in the world that challenge logic, and that some voices echo far longer than we can imagine. Often, when I look at the forests and hear the whispers, I feel a connection to that place. Norland had become a part of me, and the sensation that the forests might hold much more than they appear has never left me. Those whispers, which once instilled fear, now seem to represent an indescribable connection to nature, a respectful presence that I could not fully comprehend. In the days following my return from Norland, something shifted in my approach to photography. My art became infused with new emotions and depths, influenced by my experiences in the forest. The images I captured during those cold days were no longer just landscapes. They were echoes of feelings, memories, and transformations. I began to investigate the history of the region and the local culture, seeking to understand what might be behind those voices and the symbolism of nature surrounding me. During my research, I discovered that many locals in Norland spoke of a spiritual connection to the land. Stories of people who had heard whispers in the woods or who had similar experiences became more common than I could have imagined. Each account made me feel as though I was not alone in my experience. A current of tales was forming, uniting those who raised their voices in honor of nature and what it could teach us. In one of these explorations, I met a local artist who used her art to express similar experiences and feelings. She shared with me that she often felt consumed by her own whispers, guiding her in her practice. Deep conversations blossomed between us, and she encouraged me to reflect on how the voices we hear can, in fact, be messages of inspiration rather than just dark warnings. Functioning as a new ritual, I decided to revisit the moment when I heard those whispers, and gradually I began to feel lighter. For me, art became a new means of processing my experiences, giving voice to what had once felt vague and undefined. Thus, I created a series of photographs that captured the essence of Norland, each image adorned with the sensations that flowed from those forests and the magic that inhabited their depths. Over time, I worked on an exhibition to share these new creations. I wanted people to feel what I felt in that forest, the mix of fear and connection, and to understand that nature is a sacred place that speaks to us in ways we need to learn to listen to. The exhibition became a way to honor not only the experience I had lived, but also those whispers that, in a sense, transformed me. On the opening night, the gallery was filled, and the faces of the people reflected curiosity and fascination. As I presented my work and spoke about my experience in Norland, I realized that art has the power to connect our deepest feelings. People began sharing their own stories of experiences in nature, creating a lively dialogue about what we cannot see but feel in our hearts. The whispers in Norland were not just echoes of the past. They became representations of voices that speak through the trees, the snow, and every breath of wind. The connection with nature is not only about what we see, but also about what we feel and how it shapes us. By the end of the night, as I watched the reactions of the people, I recognized that despite the terrifying experiences, there was also beauty in the uncertainties that life presents. Over time, the forests of Norland became a living memory within me, a reminder that we are not alone in our journeys. I believe that the voices that surround us never completely disappear. They simply teach us to listen more closely. That experience should not be feared, but rather celebrated as part of the path we travel. Life is rich with stories and mysteries that shape us, proving that even in the scariest experiences, we can find beauty, inspiration, and above all, connection. My name is Sophia. I'm a biology student, and I decided to spend a winter vacation in a cabin in El Bolson to study the local flora. As I came across the isolated cabin, I felt it would be the perfect place for my research. The snow blanketed the surrounding mountains, creating an ideal scenario for a break from studies and an opportunity to explore the unique biodiversity of the region. The tranquility of the place was overwhelming, and the beauty of winter seemed to invite introspection and discovery. On the first night, while organizing my materials and preparing a simple dinner, I noticed a strange light flickering through the window. At first, I thought it might be the reflection of the full moon, but as I approached, I realized that the light pulsed irregularly, almost like a beacon, coming from a direction in the forest. A chill ran down my spine, but curiosity and the need to understand what was happening pulled me outside the cabin. Engaging with the unknown had always been something I sought in my studies, but at that moment, the choice to step out felt less like an adventure and more like a challenge. With a flashlight in hand, I walked slowly toward the light, the snow crunching beneath my feet with each step. The trees around me, coated in ice, created threatening shadows that danced in the dim light, and the magic of the forest transformed into an almost oppressive presence. The deep silence enveloped the air. Even the sounds of the night had vanished, as if warning me to retreat. Yet the light continued to attract me and moved invitingly, drawing me deeper into the forest. As I drew closer, the light inexplicably extinguished, plunging everything into absolute darkness. Disconcerted, I stopped in a small clearing, holding my breath as I surveyed the darkness around me. It was then that I heard whispers. They were not comprehensible words, but voices that seemed to intertwine in the air around me, calling for something I couldn't understand. A sudden panic overwhelmed me, and the need to return to the safety of the cabin made my heart race. The path back transformed into a frantic run, the shadows seeming to move behind me as I tried to escape those unsettling voices. Upon entering the cabin, I slammed the door shut, as if that alone could protect me from the invisible forces I felt lurking. I tried to calm myself, but the whispers didn't cease, echoing off the walls like remnants of a past that didn't belong to me. I couldn't comprehend what was happening, but the sensation of something or someone watching me remained strong and inescapable. In that moment of fear, the urge to understand surged again. I had to confront whatever it was that haunted me. Taking a deep breath, I steadied my resolve and decided I would not be ruled by fear. The mysteries of the forest were calling out to me. A challenge, a chance to learn, and perhaps even a way to uncover what lay hidden in the depths of my own anxieties. With determination fueling my every step, I readied myself to find the courage to face the unknown once more. The next morning, I sat down to examine and analyze what I had experienced. The light, the whispers, everything swirled in my mind, but something was wrong. My journal, where I noted information about the flora, was open, with several pages torn out. Horrified, I realized that those pages contained strange drawings that I didn't recognize, distorted figures and symbols that seemed to hold meanings I couldn't comprehend. The sensation of being watched was intense and overwhelming, a constant reminder that I had crossed a line that shouldn't have been crossed. What was that light? Why did something or someone want to call me? A part of me urged to ignore what had happened and return home, but the curiosity about the whispers and the light consumed me. I decided I could no longer stay in that cabin, where the boundary between reality and the ghostly seemed to dissolve. As soon as I reached the main road, I looked back and saw the cabin shrouded in thick fog, as if surrounded by a mantle that concealed deep secrets. Although the day was clear, the experience from the night before weighed on my mind like a burden. Whenever I tried to concentrate on the plants and biodiversity, the whispers echoed in my heart, and the pulsing light became a constant reminder that not everything in the forest was benign. As I distanced myself from the cabin, I realized that my research in the forest had transformed into a disturbing experience I would never forget. What had started as a quest for knowledge had transfigured into something much darker. The forests of El Bolson were not merely a beautiful picture to be explored, but a repository of ancient secrets and possibly interrupted lives. My mind filled with questions about what might have inhabited those shadows and about what I had truly disturbed during my brief stay. The images of the light and the whispers became ghosts clinging to my consciousness, haunting me during every moment of silence I encountered. During the drive back, each kilometer seemed to prolong the connection to the supernatural I had experienced. The sun shone brightly, and the beauty of the scenery seemed to contradict the feelings that the experience left behind. Comments and laughter from strangers on the roads only served to remind me that the world moved on, while I felt trapped between two realities. When I finally arrived home, I hoped normalcy would welcome me, but instead, the feeling of discomfort settled in even deeper. The light in my house seemed brighter, but every night, when silence enveloped the space, the whispers and the vision of the pulsing light returned to torment me. In an effort to distract myself, I threw myself back into college, immersing in working classes, but the memories of the cabin and the inexplicable phenomena continued to visit me, a haunting presence I couldn't shake off. I gathered news about Hell's Canyon, El Bolson, and other isolated areas, and what I found made my blood run cold. Many people who had passed through there, like me, reported similar experiences: strange lights, whispers, and even creatures manifesting in the dense forests. It was both comforting and terrifying to know that I was not alone in witnessing such phenomena, but none of this diminished the weight of my experience. Initiatives to study natural and supernatural phenomena began to take root in my mind. I felt I needed to find a way to test what I hoped would be the boundary between the real and the imaginary. I researched and sought advice on local legends and folklore, hoping to gain a better understanding of what might have caught my attention on that ominous night at the cabin. At a college event, I met a professor who specialized in folklore and natural sciences, and I couldn't resist talking to him about my experiences. He listened attentively as I recounted the pulsing light and the whispers, jotting down details and asking questions. Finally, he looked at me with an enigmatic smile and said, "Nature is full of mysteries, and often its voices reach us when we least expect them. What you experienced may reflect something deeply inscribed in the land." His words resonated in my mind, and suddenly everything made sense. What I saw and heard was not merely a whim of my imagination, but a norm in the conversations between humanity and nature. Instead of simply feeling fear, I now believed I should seek to understand the whispers and what they might represent in relation to biodiversity and their stories. Minutes turned into hours, and losing track of time, little by little, The entire experience I had held as a nightmare transformed into a fertile ground for research. I decided to embark on a project that mixed art and science, exploring the voices of the forest, the biology I loved, and the folklore that had become part of my journey. The experiences at the cabin became a tool designed to further explore the relationship between the environment and human perception. Over time, the experience at the cabin in El Bolsón ceased to be a burden. The lights and whispers became a fundamental part of my quest for understanding and connection. Rather than fearing the unknown, I was determined to listen to it. Now, the icy forests of Argentina continued to invite exploration, and the light I saw that night became a flame of curiosity ignited in my heart, illuminating new paths to be explored. Thus, my journey in El Bolsón transformed into a trail I never expected to traverse, challenging me to embrace the unknown and the revelations it brings.